On November 4th, I got the 1.0 world record for Tears of the Kingdom any percent. But I've done that quite a few times since the game's launch in May, so what's the big deal this time? For the first time in 5 months, I managed to get a world record that doesn't use Amiibo. Ever since Gymnast's 50-30 back in June, scanning Amiibo has been a part of every top run. Even to this day, Amiibo is faster, but I saw an opportunity. Everything lined up to make it possible to overcome the Amiibo advantage and reunite the mainboard world records as Amiibo-less. And here's a video explaining how it happened. But first, what is an Amiibo and why is it faster? Amiibo are the figurines that Nintendo sells featuring the characters from their games. But they're not just for show. Inside the base is an NFC tag that can be scanned in certain games for special effects, like giving access to special items such as this Lon Lon Ranch paraglider fabric. For Tears of the Kingdom, we're not really worried about the special items they drop, since those are either too rare or don't have any use. But every Amiibo drops a set of materials that matches the theme of the character. For example, Wind Waker Link drops fish, Zelda drops various plants, and Wolf Link drops... meat? Most materials don't do anything for us, but the Twilight Princess Link Amiibo has a chance to drop Fleet Lotus seeds. This is a high tier speed up ingredient, so it can be cooked to get level 3 speed food, which makes Link run a lot faster. Amiibo usage in speedruns has always been a hot topic for debate. I've gotten plenty of comments dismissing my Breath of the Wild runs for using Amiibo, despite the fact that in many of those cases I also held the no Amiibo world record. Some people believe that it's cheating and pay to win, since it uses items that have to be bought separately, whereas others argue that it's a built-in feature in the game, so using Amiibo is fair play. Personally, I think the pay to win aspect is pretty much non-existent because Amiibo cards or NFC tags are very easy to get cheaply, and with the existence of leaderboard filters, there's an easy way to view both Amiibo and no Amiibo times separately. It's a gray area and not everybody is going to be happy, but I haven't ever seen too much of a problem with it. When I started running Breath of the Wild, Amiibo was already established as the go-to for any percent. But part of the reason for that was because it reduced RNG in the route. There was a crate with a 50% chance to spawn a banana that was necessary for no Amiibo runs, so having the ability to scan for attack up ingredients instead was really convenient and allowed more runs to continue. And I think that if Amiibo reduces the randomness in a speedrun without bypassing a lot of the routing decisions or gameplay, then it's a positive thing. But that isn't always the case. In Tears of the Kingdom, the Fleet Lotus seed saves time because it gives us speed up ingredients without having to detour to get hot-footed frogs. This adds a little bit of RNG, but the odds aren't that bad, so it's just a slightly more direct path through the Great Sky Island. But it doesn't stop there. Daruk mostly drops flint and rock salt, but has a small chance to drop rubies, sapphires, and topazes. If you haven't seen it before, gems in this game create huge explosions that are very effective at killing large groups of enemies, which trivializes the army fight. So Amiibo can also be used to spawn a gem anywhere we want, but honestly, there's a guaranteed ruby in the pondside cave near Fuse, so the alternative isn't too far out of the way, around 30 seconds or so. And for most of this game's lifespan, Daruk has been a meme since the idea of scanning for a 13% drop 15 plus minutes into the run doesn't get most people jumping for joy. But time save is time save, and as the run gets more optimized, those 30 to 40 seconds from skipping the cave become more appealing. But this is a no Amiibo video, so let's jump into the newest additions to the run that helped close the gap. The main reason any percent times have been dropping so drastically in the last few months is a glitch called Arrow Smuggle. If you've seen 1.2 speedruns, you'll recognize it as the crazy flying through the air trick that made current patch unique. Until they patched it. But wasn't that 1.2 exclusive? Arrow Smuggle is a state in which Link's bow is desynced from his model, which leads to some pretty weird and useful effects, like immediately cancelling jump slashes when the bow is drawn. It's possible to set up in every version of the game, even 1.2.1, but the method isn't always the same. And the thing that made 1.2 unique was that they unintentionally introduced a really fast way to set up Arrow Smuggle while trying to fix a different glitch, which was aptly named Quick Smuggle. But aside from Quick Smuggle, we have Zuggle Overload Arrow Smuggle, Like Arrow Smuggle, Shock Arrow Smuggle, and I'm sure there are more that I don't know or remember. But the one to keep an eye on in this case is Zuggle Overload Arrow Smuggle. Back in August, Moz, who has been a huge part of strat development for Tears of the Kingdom speedruns, decided to look into 1.0 arrow smuggling. It had been known to be possible, but wasn't really considered for speedruns since the setup required zuggling a lot, and any time spent standing still was time that could be spent making progress towards completing the Great Sky Island. But the idea was this. Use the Zuggle glitch to duplicate weapons, shields, and bows at the same time. This is done by dropping enough weapons to take up the space behind Link, preventing any further weapons from being dropped. Then, after a very quick unpause pause, we drop more weapons anyway, and instead of simply putting them back in the inventory like usual, it duplicates them onto Link's model. The duplicated weapons can actually deal extra damage, which is how we kill Ganondorf so quickly at the end of the run despite only having a single spear. Once enough sticks, shields, and bows are attached to Link, the game becomes overloaded and starts to fall apart. We only want to overload it enough to get the bow to drop to the floor, since that's the necessary desync for arrow smuggle. After which, we fuse the bow to a weapon to keep the smuggle state active for the rest of the run. The current setup requires 3 rounds of zuggling, which takes about 20 seconds, but initial setups were not quite as optimized. Once it's set up, the benefits are extremely obvious. Being able to cancel jump slashes lets us fly through the air, and coupled with a bomb jump off a slope, it becomes really efficient for early game movement, where there aren't rockets or auto build. It also doesn't require any menuing, which makes it quite a bit faster for clipping out of bounds compared to the old jump slash cancel method, using the ability wheel and shield swap. So as long as the new arrow flights and clips saved enough time to offset the setup, it would be worth it in the long run. Or the short run if you think about it. And it seemed like it definitely would be, once everything was ironed out and faster setups were found. But at the time, All Dungeons was really popular, and a lot of the top any % runners were switching over to it, so nobody was actively running the new route, even though strats were still being developed. Well, nobody except Flower 2. Flower 2 was already a top contender in any %, but after a few months of strat development and practice, managed to complete the first world record using Zuggle Overload Arrow Smuggle, clocking in at 43 minutes and 38 seconds. This only beat the previous world record by a couple seconds, but it put the new route on the map and proved it was worth the effort. But I found it interesting for another reason. Flower 2 used Amiibo, but not for speed food. He had scanned the Daruk Amiibo to get the gem instead of going to the Pondside Cave. See, flying straight to the Fuse Shrine doesn't just skip the cave where the ruby is, it also skips the cooking pot that would be used to cook speed up meals. And in this case, it's actually worth skipping speed food entirely, since a lot of the running sections have been replaced by arrow smuggle flight, which isn't affected by speed food. And that's the part that stuck out to me. With the new route, not using Amiibo wasn't quite as punishing, because although it's theoretically faster to scan for a gem, it introduces more RNG, which can easily even out the time save compared to not scanning. Flower 2 had to scan 7 times to get a topaz, which lost around 20 seconds to a first try scan. The run wasn't optimized yet either, so there was also time to be made up with cleaner execution. And there was one more trick up my sleeve: early ascend. This was another new routing option that had been floating around for about as long as Zuggle Overload Arrow Smuggle, but had actually been used before Flower 2's run by serious challenges to get a time of 43:41 just a few weeks prior. By extending the floor is lava logic that we use at the Temple of Time to when we talk to the construct to get the Purapad, it's possible to warp all the way back up to the top island. This makes getting to ascend even faster than before by cutting out the rest of the climbing we used to do by instead flying straight there. There are 2 ways of talking to the construct without touching the ground. The first is to use repeated jump slashes to get close to the construct, and then place a wing near the edge of the cliff before grabbing the wall so that Link can stand on the wing after climbing back up. This doesn't save that much time because the jump slashes are slow and so is climbing up the wall. The second method is faster and is called wing flip. Dropping a wing while diving causes it to flip over, allowing Link to grab it momentarily while it's vertical. This resets the height value that's used to calculate fall damage, which means that we can place down a second wing and land on it without dying. From there, it's possible to fly straight to the construct while standing on a wing. If it looks scary, that's because it is. But it does save a decent chunk of time, and Flower 2's run didn't use it, so if I could pull it off, then I'd be that much closer to closing the gap. Also, fun side note, there's an autosave trigger surrounding the island down below that will set Link's respawn coordinates to the top of the stairs outside the water, so even after the flip, it's not as easy as flying straight to the construct. And so I started to practice the new route. At this point, it looked like this. Grab a tree branch or two on top of the Room of Awakening, which we need for Zuggle later. Do wing flip early ascend to get to the first shrine, and then disarm the construct inside to get a bow. On the way to Fuse, drop down to the bottomless cave to pick up a shield and bomb. Fly to the pondside cave to pick up a ruby, kill the constructs by the cooking pot for a second shield, and then run to the shrine, picking up another tree branch on the way. Inside of the shrine, perform Zuggle Overload Arrow Smuggle, after which almost all of the movement relies on bomb shields and arrow smuggle flight. This includes skipping the construct cutscene and Fuse, flying to Ultra Hand, flying to the end of Ultra Hand, flying to the Temple of Time, flying to the end of Recall, flying to the Temple of Time again, and finally flying to the end of the Great Sky Island. Everything after is the same as before, but the ceiling clips are around 15 seconds faster because of arrow smuggle. And it was difficult. The beginning of the run just keeps getting harder, and the intro cutscene isn't getting any shorter. Arrow smuggle flight makes the run a lot more interesting, but it comes at the cost of significant added risk. Missed the pause timing for Zuggling, lose 10 seconds. Pressed Y slightly too early at any point during the long flight to Ultra Hand, the run's over. Having to reload at any point gets rid of arrow smuggle, so that's definitely not allowed. But it makes for a more exciting speedrun both for the runners and the viewers, so I'm all for the grind. And after a few weeks, I managed to get this run. 43:30, a new world record without using Amiibo. It was a run I was pretty happy with, but if you've been keeping up with the leaderboard, you know that's not where the story ends. Like I said earlier, Flower 2's run was just the beginning for arrow smuggle flight, and even better strats were being developed nearly every single day. Things like getting a shield early at the Temple of Time so that we can skip the shield by the cooking pot, using shield surfs after running off a wing to move faster through the air while simultaneously losing height quickly, and clipping out of bounds at the balcony where there are arrows so that we can do arrow flight without arrows instead of having to drain stamina every single time. The spotlight tends to go to the world record holder, but routing and strat development is a community effort, so shoutouts to Airguile, Moz, Clouded, Ferris, Andre, Lovely Sirius, and everyone else who helped out. For the past couple of months, Red Slay and I have been trading off world records, bringing the time down all the way below 41 minutes. But as much as I liked the no Amiibo route, I reached a point where I felt satisfied. I didn't really have a goal time in mind for no Amiibo with the route being so new, but sub 42 seems like the last minute barrier I'd realistically be getting without a big breakthrough. So I started running with the Rook and managed to beat my time using an even faster arrow smuggle setup that's Amiibo exclusive. But that's for another video. Thanks for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe. And remember that if you want to see no Amiibo speedruns, you can filter the leaderboard with a few simple clicks. And while you're at it, you might as well click the like button down below.